Hello and welcome to 11FS Spotlight. My name is David Brear. In this show, we shine a bit of a spotlight on the best and the brightest in the tech and financial services industry to try and understand what gets them going, growing, and what they really think the future of the industry will look like. On today's Spotlight, I am delighted to be joined by Nick Root, who is the co-founder and CEO over at Intergyro. How's it going, Nick? Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi there. Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Uh,
I love the show.
No worries at all. I mean, you're joining us in a much. I mean, it ain't been bad in London, the sunshine this summer, but you're joining us in a much sunnier place, aren't you? So, where in the world are you today?
I'm in Lisbon, which has been pretty hot actually, but it's cooled off a bit and it's kind of breezy now and fair.
Very nice, very nice. I mean, I guess at the point where it starts getting cooler here, it's still going to be warm there. So, like, it's I go off people really quickly sometimes. You know what I mean? But no, it's great to have you on. What we're going to be doing today is talking a little bit about Nick's career, take a bit of a mini deep dive into how to go about building a digital business in 2022 and beyond. Because I think a lot of people talk about digital, but if I'm honest with you, I don't think a lot of people really understand it in that sense. So we'll go a little bit deeper on that as well. But maybe if we start off, Nick, by doing a little bit of give us the pitch. Who are Intergyro? What do you guys stand for? What do you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So we exist to help unlock the value of the internet. It's a fairly lofty aim, but we try to do that by providing the financial tools that innovators need to build. And essentially what that means is it's a API or lots of API that bundles the whole transaction value chain. So if you think about the PSP, the acquirer, the bank ledger, the FX provider, the card issuer, that's all bundled in one API. And that goes to market through two platforms. We have a B2B and a B2B2C platform. And the hope is that this kind of unusual bundling provides a product that's not only more convenient for builders as they try to create new things, but it's also enabling completely new product experiences. We enabled at least 3 new models which couldn't have existed without us. So very, very proud of that. But we've been around for about 5 years. We've got 180 people, and we're all over Europe, so distributed. And I would say pretty digital, but that's my view.
Very cool. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, when you're enabling. We always talk at 11FS about the fabric of financial services essentially changing, and actually, as you say in that, then the underpinning parts of that new fabric. It's creating new Lego blocks for people to make completely different things in that sense, isn't it? So whether, as you say, whether it's the business model, whether it's changing the embedded nature of where those things are, we'll come to a lot of this in a second. So, but maybe let's focus a little bit more on you, because I mean, building a business and going from nobody to lots and lots of people and a brand supporting other organizations, being the CEO of a business, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Like I think a lot of people kind of look at that, being a CEO is this amazing thing, and you're the Elon Musk or the sort of Bill Gates of the setup. But I mean, you're sort of chief problem solver really most of the time, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a hell of a journey. That's what I would say. It's not for everybody. It's not probably what you imagine it is. I mean, the worst of it is that you end up with everybody's problems. Client problems, colleague problems, whatever. Most of those end up with you. But on the plus side, at least in this industry or in my business, I get to work on and help the innovators and the people that are genuinely creating new things, and I absolutely love that. So it's the rough and the smooth, but I think you've got to choose an area where that you love. Otherwise, I think the rough would overwhelm the smooth.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people focus on the end result and not enjoy the journey. And actually, I think you absolutely have to enjoy the journey, don't you? In that
Yeah.
sense, even if you can find pleasure somewhere in all of the craziness in terms of the things that you've got to do, then actually, still you can kind of keep a smile on your face, can't you? But tell us a little bit more about your background then. I mean, what led you all the way up to starting this business?
So I'm from London. I was raised in London, and like most kids that come out of university that don't know exactly what they want to do, I went into banking, finance. Even though I had a degree in computer science, that was the obvious route for me. And I worked at two of the oldest financial institutions in the world. I was at Legal and General, obviously a big pensions and institutional investor, and then I was at Lloyd's, which, as you know, is an enormous retail bank. Um, and I did lots of roles in those areas, in those businesses, all the way from actuarial risk, accountant, product operations, investor relations. I used that as my education as much as I could. But on that journey, I did see that the corporate end of things, or the business banking end of things, was really lacking, and was, a long way behind the consumer end of things, which was moving along quite nicely. So I always, in the back of my mind, thought that there was an opportunity to radically change the way that businesses access finance. Um, and then about 2015, I was pretty hyped about the internet, like lots of us were, and the kind of models that were coming out, crypto, IoT, platform, marketplaces, everything like that. And I wanted to work on those things and create those things. Um, and it was really hard. The banks, they didn't want to work with us. Even if they wanted to work with us, I don't think they had the technology that we needed to create what we wanted to. So hatched a plan to create our own bank. Well, actually, it ended up not being a bank. That's quite a long road. It's actually an EMI, and we treat it like a kind of application layer or regulated layer that sits on the banks. So we work with many banks, and we provide that nice, clean layer for businesses and innovators to build with.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And actually, as you say, the model has shifted so dramatically since 2015, hasn't it? Actually, with all of the advent of all of the bank as a service plays, with the changes that we've seen
Yeah,
in the competitive
yeah,
landscape in terms of, the rise of the neo banks and the challenger banks and everything that goes there. And,
yeah.
actually, I mean, you guys were ahead of the curve in that sense, but I guess the competitive landscape has shifted quite dramatically over that time period. But I mean, how much do you sort of, when you look back at your career in big financial services organizations, because I mean, I worked at Lloyd's Banking Group and Aviva and different places in that
Did
sense,
you?
and
Oh,
actually, my experience with that gives me this odd sense of empathy towards big organizations, because actually, to your point, like, I mean, I put out something this morning where I'm like, everybody's got great ideas, but most organizations just don't have the ability to execute. And actually, what you're doing
mm-hmm.
now is trying to enable organizations to execute really effectively by really giving them the
Yeah,
technology that they just wouldn't be able to get to on their own.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think cultural change is such a hard thing. It may be the hard thing, or the hardest thing, sorry. And when you're running a business, and I think a lot of these, large legacy players, they have all the best intentions in the world, but for various reasons, I think they're going to struggle, or they have, to keep up with the need. The internet is creating change at a quicker and quicker rate. And if you're an enormous legacy player, I think that's just becoming more and more of a
Yeah.
problem, frankly.
And I guess that sort of comes to that broader topic in that sense, which is, everybody talks about being digital, and actually, look, the advent of the internet, and as you say, all of the things that sort of come with that, with connected devices and all these things, people sort of talk about being digital, but why is it actually important for a business to be digital in 2022?
Well, I think maybe we should just clear up what we mean when we say that. So, what is a business? Well, it's an application of energy and resources to create value by removing some customer friction, right? And what's a digital version of that? Well, it's one that applies technology effectively at every layer of the stack to create that value. Okay, so it's a very broad term, and I think it could look like lots of different things. Why is that worth striving for? Well, on one level, I think we need to try something, right? We're in the grips of a productivity crisis, where there's just enormous amounts of capital swirling around on the balance sheets and not creating value. And I would argue this is one way to create value. On another level, I think the world we're in now is more changeable and harder to predict than ever. And I think digital approaches give us the opportunity to create anti-fragile, or at least more resilient, business models. Yeah. And then lastly, I think not least, I think it gives us the opportunity to create more humane businesses as well, that are more enjoyable to work in, where people can kind of work more on their terms and be judged more on the quality of their output and not on how they look or dress. And I think that's worth pursuing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? In that context of, again, word, people just use the word. I mean, for like the last 6 years, we've been saying to people, it's like, look, digital and digitized are very different things. And actually, when you talk to a big organization about being digital, they're like, yeah, but we have like a mobile app. Like, we've got a mobile app, we've got a website. We're distributing the products that we've got. But digitized and digital are quite fundamentally different in that sense, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the what and the how. You can change what you do, and you can make your products more digital. And I think most businesses in the world are trying to do that, or have done that. But the how, how to change how you operate, I think there's a real opportunity to have another look at how we operate and how we organize, with digital in mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's completely different.
Yeah, it's weird, that, isn't it? It's the old sort of mentality. Everything's a project. They're focusing on features. At the end of the project, they've spent a bunch of money. They've delivered some customer features. But to your point, I always say, I think it's a Banana Rama song. I'm like, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it, right? And I think digital is the way you do it. It's the core. You said the C word, culture, earlier on. It's the core capability and the way in which you operate as an organization. But why do you think big organizations get that so wrong? I mean, I'm asking more for my own sake here, because I'm talking to people about this all the time, but there just seems to be such a disconnect, which is no, we focus on the features, we don't focus on capabilities. But I think it is changing. But why do you think they get that so wrong?
Well, I think it's just what we mentioned. It's the difference between the what and the how. So everyone, just took lots of these legacy players. They took what was working previously and then just tried to do that, but online with video calls, right? And then some agile coaching. Whereas I think the opportunity, in my mind, digital is being enabled through the internet. Okay, there's not any new invention. What's changed? Video calls, data, collaboration tools, chat tools. What's enabled that? And it's not any invention other than HTTP running on TCP, right? So the internet is what's enabled this opportunity, and the internet is distributed. So in my mind, and this is, I guess, reasonably controversial, being digital means being more distributed. And for a lot of legacy organizations, I think that's a challenge. Just fundamentally, they're all used to being in one place, and that's how they like it. So I think you get a lot of friction there. I think there's a bit of the legacy technology issues. We saw with TSB a few years ago when they tried to switch over the bank platform. With all the money in the world and all the brains in the world, that is just a legitimately complex technical problem.
Yeah. If anybody still
and I think
thinks
leadership,
like an overnight flicking a switch and changing an entirety of a system is a good idea, it's not. Like, it's just not a good idea, is it?
that is a legitimately hard problem, and I do empathize with that. And I think leadership as well. It's probably changed now, but when I was working in these huge institutions, there wasn't a technologist on the board.
Yeah.
Which is weird when you think that the entire product that they ship could be code, right? It could be transmitted into code.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, on the TSB example there as well, I mean, like you say, the process didn't make sense in today's age, did it? But Paul Pester, I know Paul Pester, the ex-CEO of there, good dude. Like, real setting out to be doing great things. But as you say, like there wasn't maybe enough technological experience in TSB to be just like, this makes no sense, guys. There's a lot of risk here. So I guess fast forwarding to today though. Like we say, that approach, flick over a switch. I mean, I remember doing that at Aviva for application forms, and we'd do it at like 3 a.m. in the morning, and we'd have a lot of Red Bull and pizza, and it was good fun. And you could do it because it was like risk-based, but we had the processes to roll back if there was an issue. But today, with Bank as a Service, with products like your own, people kind of don't need to take those risks anymore, right? To build capability, to get capability to the market. So, I mean, are you finding then with you guys that it is, is it digital businesses? Is it sort of digital born businesses that are working with you? Or are you finding actually you're getting, more legacy organizations wanting to do these things, but maybe just not having the building blocks to get there?
Well, we created the product, as I mentioned earlier, with digital models in mind, and the kind of crypto businesses, the marketplaces, they are making up the majority of the clients. But we have been surprised. We've got insurance businesses which are using our banking as a service platform to create wallets for their clients, and they're collecting the premiums in those wallets, which helps with fraud and helps with accounting. Of course, they have some pretty heavy accounting issues that are made much easier if you can just account with an algorithm because everything's in a wallet. We've got acquirers that are using our APIs where they're introducing their merchants to us, and then they're using our APIs to do the payouts to those merchants instantly. So actually, we're seeing that these older models, are now moving as well, which is really, really interesting and makes us very happy.
It's interesting, isn't it? You sort of said earlier on around, culture's slow to change. But I think the slowest thing to change in traditional organizations is their business model, right? But actually, if you're starting to see, I mean, it's always the, hey, we'll do overdrafts until we die type vibe, or just because it's a difficult drug to get off, right? If you're a 300-year-old organization and that's the way you've made money for 300 years, it's kind of tough to give that up and to grasp onto something else. But if we're really starting to see change in that, that's great, right? And I think, as you say, we always talk about sort of third column businesses. If you look at, the music industry, the news industry, banking, whatever, like people who are in that third column, Spotify's business
Yeah.
model is fundamentally different to when they used to sell CDs in Woolworths. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's really different
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, are we going to get there, do you think, in financial services? Do you think that different business model on the infrastructure level, and actually even, like you say, gaining regulatory access in a different way because of the way technology is structured today, do you think we'll start seeing customer service, customer business models changing as well?
Yes. Yeah. I think that we are in the midst of a paradigm shift, and obviously those that word's a bit overused maybe, but I think we'll look back on this period as a point of real change. You know, technology. If you look at the history of technology, seems to abstract upwards. It kind of reaches abundance and then it abstracts upwards. And what we're seeing is that finance and money is being abstracted into products, right? And I think it's going to create real change. I think it's going to not only improve the customer experience, because they're not going to have to hop around. They're going to see money in the app, and the app will look like a bank. And they won't need to move money to their bank and then log in to their bank. And the businesses are going to see operational opportunities as well, data, and reducing the costs. So yeah, I think we're in a moment of real change right now.
It's interesting, isn't it? Any model, any industry that you've seen this happen in otherwise, that, to your point, that sort of power moving up the stack in that sense, the people at the bottom of the stack get
exactly.
commoditized in a major way, right? Like mobile network operators, nobody cares what
Yeah.
the logo is in the corner of your iPhone. UK, you've got an iPhone, right? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting time in that sense, because if the big banks or the big insurers let go of some of that, it's kind of, me and Jason Bates, a guy from 11FS, always say it's like sort of ironic. It's called financial services and nobody's really giving a service, right? So, but as you say, the stuff higher up that stack that is very services focused will be what I think is really successful. So, I mean, where do you see this going then? And we're like, you say this sort of inflection point, this paradigm shift that we're sort of seeing. Like, it's always hard to do crystal ball gazing, but like, let's go 2 to 3 years out. Where do you see us getting to in that sense?
Well, it's a big question. So I think the traditional players or the banks, they will always, they do that magic trick on the balance sheet, right? They create money, and that magic trick is crucial to society, and that will never stop. It's not like we're going to come along, or a new player is going to come along and replace that any time soon. So the banks will always have that. They will get pushed to a more utility play, and I think from an investment viewpoint, I think the return on equity of 20% or more, are probably things of the past, and they're going to be moved into more of a utility play, and that return on equity is 10% or less. I mean, they will make more money, of course, as the interest rate rises, and they can do that leading and lagging, and the net interest income increases. But I think they will lose more of their transactional business and the P&L, the fee revenue they get from the transactional business, and that will be replaced by players like us, which are providing that layer in between them, right? Providing the technology and the interface and the UX that innovators and builders need as they create new things. So, I mean, you said 3 years out. I don't think a whole lot's going to change in that time. I think there's also some macro things to think about there. We're going to probably have a pretty nasty recession in the next few years. So I think there'll be some consolidation of the new players, that's for sure. And the big balance sheets will look more rosy and more healthy, and a nicer place to be. But 10 years out, I think this trend will be accelerating even more. The kind of utilization of the banks and legacy players, and then this new layer coming in between, which I think will be very exciting.
Very cool. And like say at the top of this, we talked about the fabric of financial services changing. You guys are playing such a big part in changing that fabric in that sense. So what is the future for you guys? Like actually, what's on the roadmap?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, banking as a service, we've been thinking about it for 5 years. We shipped our product a year and a half ago, just over a year maybe, and demand is already higher than we can meet. So we've got to harmonize all the onboarding and all the operations around that platform. And we're going to move into credit as well. So we're going to be using other balance sheets to lend through. So I think next year will be just trying to manage the demand that we have, trying to meet the demand of the clients that we already have, because of course they all have rinky-dinks and requirements and they want this and that. So trying to keep up with those needs as they improve and hone their products, and also moving into credit and lending.
Very, very cool. I mean, it's an amazing journey you guys have, and actually, you know, you as the company, but you as an individual as well. I mean, there's not too many people who sort of straddle a corporate career and then go and build a startup and scale it to the level that you have done. So we always get asked this question: is like, what would be the advice you'd give your younger self, other than like maybe you know, sleep a little bit more and stay hydrated? But like, what advice would you give yourself when you were younger?
I think your 20s are your real education. I didn't know that. I thought that, you know, you did university and then you begun work and you were immediately on the hook and in the hamster wheel or the rat race. I wish that I'd been told the advice that actually your 20s are about true trial and error, and you can't really make an error other than, you know, not trying. So yeah, the advice would be, you know, cast a wide net in your 20s, try everything, fail loads, and then you can start to deliver with real value, I think, a bit later on. So that's the advice that I wish I'd had.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Do you know what? I've got a half-written blog post that I want to kind of put out at some point around potential. And it's exactly as you were saying. Like, I kind of think it's like in that period from finishing university to laying down foundations in life, in that sense, you know, like getting married, having kids, whatever. It's like you've got so much opportunity in that period of time to just do whatever you need, you know, like say, learn this, do that, experiment this, whatever. Like, because
Absolutely.
actually you could get away with that stuff because people are going to be like, yeah, but they've got loads of
Absolutely.
potential, and like almost like use that
Exactly.
to your advantage. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you could get
Yeah.
away with stuff when you're 25, that when you're 75, people are not going to accept it. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
using that to your
Yeah.
advantage and
Absolutely.
learning as much as you can is definitely a thing. But I mean, and actually, I mean, this is more a personal ask from my perspective. But like, you scaled the business to a really great degree. I mean, how have you found scaling an organization through I mean, I found with 11FS the experience when you're 5 people is really different from when you're 150 people. You know what I mean? So how have
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
found and stayed sane in that period of time?
Yeah. It's a great, I guess it changes a lot, right? I mean, I loved when we were just 5 of us in a room and we were hacking out, you know, problems one by one. Um, but as we've got larger, the kind of the problems change. But we've managed to keep the same attitude. You know, the keep focus on the problem, try to keep politics to an absolute minimum. So it's still an environment that I absolutely love. It's just happening. I'm not as involved in a lot of the problems, which I actually miss. And I think probably the
Mm.
thing that I've found hardest, but like the best learning, is to try to, rather than jump in on a problem and fix it, try to guide others on how to fix the problem, because, you know, we're trying to create an organization here that scales to much more than me, right? So trying to be that the coach and the trainer, much rather than the actual problem solver, which is my nature. I love to solve problems when I see them. So that's one thing that's helped me along the way.
I'm absolutely the same. It's like jump in, fix the thing, and beyond. But it's like sustainability isn't just about the oceans and pandas. Do you know what I mean? Like creating sustainability in your organization that means you're not
Yeah,
critical to it is like a real
yeah,
hard thing to do. But it takes a lot of self
exactly.
awareness to get that as well. But sadly we're going to come to the end of the show right now. But we'll definitely get you guys back on when you've conquered the world and delivered everything that in that 3 to 5 year window we were talking about. But thank you very much for joining us, Nick. It's great to chat. Where can people learn a little bit more about you and everything that you guys are getting up to?
We're quite active on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. And so look us up, Intergyro. Also the blog on our website. I write quite a lot on, so intergyro.com/resources. You can see lots of my long form stuff on there.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It's all the time that we have this week. Make sure you follow 11FS on LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, like pretty much any social media channel, like even TikTok apparently these days. Didn't know that. If you do enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe. Head over to the 11FS YouTube channel. You can catch up on all of the other previous episodes of this show. Some super duper awesome guests over the years, which has been amazing. Have a great week, everybody. See you soon.